Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So today we are going to be installing coilovers. Check this out. Megan Racing coilovers. This is the easy version of those on the 2010 Dodge Avenger. Okay. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We are working on these coilovers, and when I ordered these Megan Racing coilovers, the fronts, as you see right here, came with only this plate. See that plate? Okay, so, which is fine. I did notice in the description, if you look close enough, you'll see that it did not have a strut mount plate. Okay, here's your other pieces to this right here, and then your nut. Okay, so this is basically what it came with: the full coilover and the top plate, but you had to order your own strut mounts. Okay, here I got some Mopars for the car. But the thing is that when you put this on, right? When you put this on, you have lots of slack. Now, even if you were to say, well, just tighten it up. Okay, you can tighten it up, but look, you're still gonna get that movement. Okay, you're still gonna get that movement. And I started doing some research for myself, and when I found out that actually I didn't even know that the stock shock had a bearing that set on here, and then you put this on top of the bearing. Okay, so to basically help stabilize everything. I was doing some research, and I guess in one of the forums a guy was talking about how Megan Racing said that it wasn't necessary to have the bearing, and that you could literally just throw this on here, throw it on the car, and it would be fine. I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of how this looks and how it feels. I mean, even if you look right there, I mean, okay, and come to find out, which I hadn't even taken these off yet. I haven't actually taken off the fronts yet, so I did not realize that there was a bearing that actually goes in the top of the mount. So you get this bearing, okay, here's the bearing. You see them cutouts? That's where them bolts are gonna sit on that mount plate. Okay, so this is gonna go inside of this plate. You have minimal slack now, okay, on the actual strut, or on the actual shock itself. So once you put this, and that seats and sit inside the bearing, and you line those up, right? Now look. Now you got that stability, okay? Now again, this is the first time I've ever put coilovers on, and I could not find any video on YouTube when it came to the Megan Racing coils for a Dodge Avenger. Okay, I looked and looked and looked and looked, and even looked online, and you know, these Megan Racing coils, the EZ, they all come the same way. Okay, they do not have the full assembly for the fronts. Now the backs are full assembled, but the fronts are not. Okay, so I wanted to get this video and show you guys, if you are interested in this, this is what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to get your strut plate and also your bearing. Okay, now depends on how you want to take the route. You can do, you know, you can go on Mopar. You can buy the plate and then the bearing separately. I think the plate was like 27 bucks and the bearing was like 50 a piece. Okay, so that's that's like $160 for these two parts on both sides. Okay, or you can go to AutoZone. I know they have my AutoZone. You can get some Duralast for like $50 for the set, which is this and the bearing. That's about 50 bucks a piece, and again, you need two of those. So it's up to you on which route you want to take. But in order to do that, you're going to need to have those in order to make your full assembly. Okay, so once you have that, you'll go ahead and put on your spacer, your washer, and then your nut. Okay, again, this is actually a locking nut, as you can see. So we're gonna go ahead and put this on. Your Allen wrench, which will fit right in here on the top. Take your wrench and just start tightening this bad boy down. And then there she is. Okay. Again, now this spring, there's no play in it whatsoever. But what I'm going to do, this should be preloaded. Okay, I would imagine this is being preloaded. I actually measured both. Okay, I actually measured both places. From here to here, and they are the same. So I would imagine that they did the preload at the factory and took the plates off, since they do not sell those as a full set. So, and then the last piece, which you're going to need, now it's up to you on how you want to do this. This is your adjustment knob for the front shock. Okay, so you can either put them in now, or you can put them on after you insert them or install them on the car. Okay, for me, I'm gonna go ahead and put this on. See? And so that way you have your adjustment knob at the top of your, and the underneath the hood, right at the top, and it's available for you. Step is to start taking apart the front end, because you do have sway, you have your sway bar hookup, and then you got your brake line over here. So, and then your main bolts that are going to hold on to where your hub is. So, let's get right into it. So what we need to do first before we get to start installing these is we are going to need to jack up the vehicle. And what I've done is I've put jack stands underneath the front, so that way I can use the jack to, you know, push up the control arm, and that way we can disengage the strut itself. Okay, we got a jack stand right there and on the other side. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we are going to loosen these bolts to put the jack actually right underneath this control arm, right down here. We're going to jack it up to put, so that way we can put pressure on that strut. Okay, so that way we can start dismantling, or so that way we can start taking it off. I put right under the control arm. I did not put it on that ball joint. I was worried something might happen to the ball joint, and I do not want to, I don't want to damage that if need be. So now what you're going to do is you are going to release this, or take the jack down, so that strut will come out. Next thing we're going to do, now that this is loose, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these bolts out for the brake line and the sensor. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the sway bar link, take the bolt off of that. So as you were seeing, I was having some problems on the back side of your sway bar link. I had to use some pliers and then get it from the front because it kept spinning. So you may have to do that as well. Biggest thing you're going to want to do, you're going to want to keep these bolts, these nuts on here, so that way you can take a hammer and bust these bolts out of there, because I'm sure they're going to be seized up. Here you have it. It's time to match up with the other strut. As you can see, the strut is totally two different sizes. So we're gonna have to adjust this to get it closer to right height. what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and leave it like this. It's about an inch difference. That way I can go ahead and get it put on. I will be doing an adjustment video setting coilovers if you guys are interested in that. I'll take a quick measurement, and that way I can set the other side as well. So you go back to tighten your strut tower mounts. Your shock is here. Use your jack to lift it up and then guide it into the position, so that way you can put your bolts back into it. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to slap a little bit of anti-seize on each bolt, so that way I don't have to worry about it ever again. Get those bolts on, and then you can go back to doing your brake line. Now that you have your brake line and your sensor wire hooked back up, the last thing you're going to have to do is get your stabilizer bar back into the shock itself. There's a couple ways you can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to use a breaker bar and pull it up and pop this in here. I could have got it ride height, but since I do have a little shorter than stock, you are going to have to lift that bar up, that sway bar, in order to get this sway bar link back into the shock. So. What I did was I used the jack, used a sway bar, and it pushed it up and lined it right in there with the hole. So all we got to do now is put the bolt on there, tighten up our ring for good, and then we are done with this side. Now that all that is complete, last thing, do not forget to tighten that bottom ring, okay, because right now it's just hand. Should be good. And due to time and everything, I did go ahead and do the backs. I have so much grease on me. I did go ahead and do the backs because truthfully, that's probably the easiest part. I want to show you a few things, specifically when it comes to the back of the Dodge Avenger. And so when it came to the back side of the Avenger, there was a couple little tricky things. And for those of you that are considering and changing either shocks period or going over to coilovers, this is something that you're going to want to keep in mind. And also there's another trick when it comes to the coilover, specifically if that's the route you're planning on taking. So check this out right here. Okay, first thing you want to do is you want to jack up the back of the vehicle, right? Jack up the back. I am doing the backs first, so I've done both sides already. Okay, and this is fully installed. Everything is tightened down. So I have not adjusted the coilovers, and I do know for a fact that when I lined them up, one side was a little longer than the other, and neither one of those was actually stock length, and that's okay. If you are interested in a tutorial on how to adjust the coilovers top to bottom, preload, the whole nine, down in the description below there's going to be another video as to how I actually go over adjusting the coilover to get the right height that you actually want to have. Okay, again, that is down in the description below. Check that video out if that's where you're aiming. So let's get back right to it. Okay, so on the Avenger you have the bottom bolt, the bolt that actually holds the shock, right? And then you have your two bolts that go inside the trunk. And the problem I had was this bolt right here that actually holds the shock. I'll show you. On the old shock, the bolt went right through there and was corroded inside the metal piece of the absorption of where the bracket is, right? So what I had to do was I had to torch that bolt to an extreme heat. Like I torched that thing for like almost 2 minutes straight. I let that thing get so hot from the outside of the, here, I'll show you. I torched the bolt from the outside so long until the inside was burning that rubber on that shock strut. So, because what happened was I wasn't able to actually get the bolt out, right? I wasn't able to get the bolt out. And I tried to, you know, tighten it, loosen it, and it just would not work. So the torch was really, outside of cutting the bolt off, was about the best option you had as to getting that bolt out. And just a quick tip, I did put anti-seize on when I put it back, so that way the corrosion buildup and all that fun jazz would not happen again. Okay, so keep that in mind. You're going to want a torch probably, and I will show you the other trick. Okay, so anyway, these bolts are 18 millimeters. You have this bolt, and then you have a nut on the back. Right. Right there. And then you have that bolt and that nut. Okay. 18 millimeter. I use a socket on one side, or an impact on one side, a wrench on the other. Got those out. Again, I'm going to show you this real quick. And then you have your bolts right here. So, right there, and then one's on the other side, right there. Okay. These coilovers have adjustments on them. If you see right here, this is an actual adjustment to your coilover. So what I did is there's already a stock hole here and there's a stock hole here, but what I did was I drilled this hole out a lot bigger, like ½ inch, 3/4, whatever it was, to get that wire plenty of space to go through. So as you slide your strut up, that wire comes up. But a trick, I took speaker wire. I shoved it in this hole right here. Shoved it all the way down. Obviously, that was before I did the actual part. Shoved it all the way down to here, right? And then from here, I put my finger up here and grabbed the wire, pulled it down, and then I taped that wire to the top of the strut mount. Okay, those are the tricks as far as getting that bolt out, because you know I did not think that was going to happen. The one right behind the rotor came out just fine. That one I figured would be all right, and it was a complete nightmare. So it took me a good 5-10 minutes to get the bolt out itself, but again, use the torch, kind of work it back and forth, let the heat do its job, and then you will be all right. So as far as that goes, guys, like, subscribe, turn that bell on, and